Margaret Whitmore had learned, over the years, how to control silence. In the boardrooms of downtown Chicago, silence was her weapon. Executives waited for her to speak, not because she demanded attention, but because she owned it. When she finally spoke, her words were calm, deliberate, and final. At 46, Margaret Whitmore was the managing director of Whitmore Dynamics, a company built on data, logistics, and efficiency. She had climbed every rung, broken every ceiling, and commanded every room she entered. But at home, silence meant something else. Her suburban house was spotless, perfectly arranged, and painfully quiet. No children's laughter, no arguments, no chaos, just the clink of silverware during dinner and the low hum of the television at night. Margaret and her husband, Daniel, had been married for 19 years, long enough for love to turn into routine, for passion to become memory, and for presence to replace connection. Daniel Whitmore was not a loud man. He was observant, careful, the kind of person who noticed what others ignored. He noticed how Margaret folded her jacket the same way every evening. He noticed how she tapped her fingers when she was thinking. And he noticed, slowly, how she stopped asking him how his day had been. At first, he told himself this was normal. Then came Ethan Cole. Ethan was 38, sharp, quiet, and brilliant. As head of the computer department, he managed the unseen heart of Whitmore Dynamics, the servers, the networks, the systems that kept the company alive. He avoided company parties, skipped small talk, and rarely smiled. Except around Margaret. Their first real conversation happened late one night during a system failure that shut down half the building. Margaret had come down to the server floor herself, heels echoing against concrete, jacket slung over her arm. Ethan looked up from his screen, surprised to see her there. They talked while machines hummed around them. Not about work at first. They talked about pressure, about expectations, about the loneliness that comes with leadership. Margaret found herself speaking more honestly than she had in years. Ethan listened, not politely, not professionally, but intently. In a way Daniel no longer did. Not because Daniel didn't care, but because he thought he already knew her. That night ended without a touch. But it did not end without consequence. From then on, Margaret found reasons to call Ethan. Meetings turned into late-night problem-solving sessions. Conversations grew longer. The distance between them grew smaller. Professional boundaries blurred quietly, without urgency, without drama. When it finally happened, when their lips met in the dim glow of a private office, it felt less like betrayal and more like relief. Margaret told herself it was temporary. Ethan told himself it was real. They became careful. No emails, no messages, no patterns. They met in anonymous spaces, airport hotels, company apartments reserved for visiting consultants. Margaret planned everything. Ethan followed. At home, Daniel began to notice the changes. Margaret's phone never left her hand. She took calls in the bathroom. She traveled more often but packed lighter. She wore a new perfume, unfamiliar, expensive, and not for him. When Daniel asked casual questions, she answered easily. Too easily. Daniel did not confront her. He had learned long ago that truth resisted pressure, but collapsed under patience. He began to observe. He reviewed financial statements they still shared out of habit. He noticed reimbursements that didn't match schedules. Hotel charges disguised as business expenses. Travel records that contradicted calendar entries. One evening, while organizing digital files, he found internal documents Margaret had accidentally synced to their shared cloud account. One name appeared again and again. Ethan Cole. Daniel hired a private investigator. He said very little, only that he needed confirmation, not assumptions. 3 weeks later, the investigator placed photographs on Daniel's dining table. Grainy images, taken from a distance. Margaret entering a hotel. Margaret laughing, a laugh Daniel hadn't heard in years. Margaret kissing another man. Something inside Daniel folded inward, neat and final. He did not cry. He did not yell. He did not call Margaret. Instead, he began to watch Ethan. Ethan had routines. Late nights. Empty parking garages. Predictable habits. He walked with the confidence of a man who believed himself invisible. On a Friday night in early October, Ethan left the office after 11. He never reached his apartment. His body was found the next morning in an underground parking structure near his building. The death was sudden, violent, final. The police called it homicide. The media called it tragedy. Margaret collapsed during a press briefing. Cameras captured her tears, her shaking hands, her whispered apologies. She mourned loudly, publicly, convincingly. At home, Daniel watched in silence. Detectives Rachel Monroe and Thomas Keller handled the case carefully. They interviewed coworkers, reviewed security footage, recovered deleted server logs. Slowly, the image of Ethan Cole changed, from dedicated employee to secret lover. The affair became public knowledge. Margaret denied nothing when confronted with evidence. Hotel records, server access logs, camera footage. The truth surfaced piece by piece, each revelation sharper than the last. Daniel became a suspect. His car had been seen near Ethan's apartment that night. He had no alibi. Fibers from his jacket matched fibers found on Ethan's coat. Daniel cooperated fully, calmly, completely. When asked why, he said only one thing: "I loved my wife." The trial captured the city's attention. Prosecutors spoke of betrayal and rage. Defense attorneys spoke of emotional collapse. Margaret testified with trembling composure, her voice breaking as she spoke of guilt and regret. She never looked at Daniel. The jury deliberated for 9 hours. The verdict was guilty, life imprisonment. Daniel accepted the sentence without reaction. As he was led away, he turned once. Margaret was crying, her face buried in her hands. For the first time in months, Daniel felt something close to peace. Whitmore dynamics survived, but never fully recovered. Margaret resigned quietly and disappeared from public life. Ethan Cole became a memory, brilliant, flawed, dead. Daniel Whitmore became a name etched into court records and cautionary headlines. And Margaret Whitmore learned, too late, that silence, once her greatest strength, had destroyed everything she tried to protect. Because some secrets do not remain buried. And some betrayals demand a price no one is prepared to pay.